I have always loved fashion. Ever since I was a little girl, I dreamed of designing clothes that would make people feel beautiful. My mother used to tell me that creativity was my greatest gift, and I believed her. But after she passed away, everything changed. My aunt took over the family fashion business, and suddenly my dreams didn't matter anymore. She never saw me as a designer. To her, I was just another worker, a seamstress who happened to be related to her. It didn't matter that I spent sleepless nights sketching designs, choosing fabrics, and perfecting every little detail. She never once gave me credit. Instead, she walked into the office every morning as if she was the mastermind behind everything. And when the press praised our brand for its visionary collections, she smiled proudly, basking in the attention, while I stood in the background like I didn't exist. I told myself it didn't matter. I convinced myself that as long as I got to do what I loved, the recognition wasn't important. But deep down it hurt. Every time I saw my aunt on magazine covers taking credit for my work, I felt invisible. And she made sure I knew my place. "You should be grateful you even have a job," she would say with a smirk, her voice dripping with superiority. It didn't matter how hard I worked or how much effort I put into our collections. To her, I was nothing more than a pair of hands sewing fabric together. There were times I wanted to speak up, to remind her that I was more than just a seamstress. But whenever I tried, she would brush me off with a laugh, telling me I was lucky she let me work for her at all. And I believed her. She had built a name for herself in the industry, and I was just the girl behind the scenes. No one knew me. No one cared about the person actually creating the designs. All they saw was my aunt, the powerful, successful businesswoman. I swallowed my pride, hoping that one day she would finally acknowledge me. Maybe if I worked harder, maybe if I proved myself, she would see my worth. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. She would take my sketches, make small changes, and present them as her own. She would attend fashion events, networking with designers and investors while I stayed back at the office, doing the real work. The worst part? Everyone around me believed her. Employees followed her lead, treating me like I was just another worker. They would snicker behind my back, whispering that I only had a job because of family connections. No one knew the truth. No one saw the late nights, the dedication, the sacrifices I made. I kept telling myself that I could endure it. That as long as I got to create, I could live with the disrespect. I was wrong. Because one day she took things too far. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't going to stay silent forever. For years, I believed I was just an employee in my aunt's company. I worked tirelessly, convincing myself that if I proved my talent, one day she would acknowledge me. I had no idea that the truth was far more twisted than I could have ever imagined. When my mother passed away, I was too devastated to question anything. My aunt stepped in immediately, taking control of everything. Our home, our assets, and most importantly, the company my mother had built from the ground up. I was too young to understand the legal side of things, and my aunt had assured me that she would handle it all. "You're not ready for this responsibility," she had said, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Let me take care of things until you're older." I trusted her. I had no reason not to. She was family, and I thought she was protecting me. But over time, her words and actions made it clear that she didn't see me as family. She saw me as an inconvenience. She made sure I never questioned my position. She made me feel like I was lucky to be working under her, like she was doing me a favor by letting me stay in the business. I never had access to financial records or legal documents. Everything went through her, and I never thought to ask why. But one evening, as I was sorting through my mother's old belongings, I stumbled upon a dusty, locked box. It was tucked away in the back of her wardrobe, hidden beneath a pile of old clothes. My heart pounded as I opened it, not knowing what to expect. Inside, I found letters, photographs, and at the very bottom, an envelope sealed with my mother's handwriting. With trembling hands, I opened it. My breath caught in my throat as I read the first few lines. It was a legal document, one that I had never seen before. My eyes scanned the words over and over, trying to make sense of them. It clearly stated that I was the rightful owner of 70% of the company. Not my aunt. Me. My whole body shook as realization hit me. My aunt had lied to me. She had taken advantage of my grief, pretending to manage the business when in reality she was keeping me in the dark. She wanted me to believe I was just another employee so she could hold on to power. I clutched the document, my breathing uneven. My entire life had been a lie. Every insult, every dismissal, every time she had made me feel small. It was all intentional. She knew the truth and she did everything she could to make sure I never found out. Rage burned inside me, but it was mixed with something else. Determination. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. I owned this company. My mother had made sure of it. And now it was time for my aunt to realize that her days of control were over. The moment I walked into the conference room, I could feel that something was off. My aunt sat at the head of the long table, her fingers tapping against the polished surface. A smug smirk played on her lips as she glanced at me, as if she had already won some invisible battle. The employees sat around her, their eyes shifting between me and her, waiting for whatever spectacle was about to unfold. I barely had time to take my seat before she cleared her throat dramatically. "I've called this meeting to discuss some much-needed changes in the company," she said, pausing for effect. "We've decided to move in a fresh, modern direction. And unfortunately, some people just don't fit into that vision anymore." Her eyes locked onto mine and I knew exactly what was coming. My stomach twisted, but I refused to look away. She leaned back in her chair, enjoying the moment. "I appreciate your efforts, but your designs are outdated. We need new talent, real talent, if we want to keep up with the industry." A few whispers spread around the room. Some employees exchanged amused glances, while others outright snickered. I could hear them murmuring under their breath, "She was just a seamstress anyway." It was only a matter of time. I clenched my fists under the table, my nails digging into my palms. She wasn't just firing me, she was humiliating me, making sure everyone saw me as disposable. As if all my years of hard work meant nothing. As if I had never been anything more than an extra pair of hands, sewing together someone else's vision. I expected anger to take over, but instead, a strange calm settled inside me. She thought she had won. She thought she was finally getting rid of me for good. But she had no idea what was coming. I slowly exhaled, forcing myself to stay composed. I could feel the weight of the legal documents still folded in my bag. The proof that this company was mine. The very place she was kicking me out of belonged to me. I met her gaze and for the first time I smiled. It was small, barely noticeable, but enough to make her expression falter for a split second. I wasn't going to fight back. Not yet. Because I had something far bigger planned. The moment I stepped out of that humiliating meeting, I knew what I had to do. My aunt thought she had won, that she had erased me from my own mother's legacy. But what she didn't realize was that I held all the power now. I wasn't just a seamstress. I wasn't just another disposable employee. I was the rightful owner of the company she had been parading around as her own. I wasted no time. The very next morning I walked into the office of one of the most respected lawyers in the city. My heart pounded as I handed him the legal documents I had found in my mother's belongings. He studied them carefully, flipping through the pages with an unreadable expression. Minutes passed in silence, but when he finally looked up, his words made my breath catch. "You have every legal right to reclaim the company," he said firmly. "Your aunt never had full ownership. She's been running the business under false pretenses. If you take legal action, you can remove her immediately." Hearing those words sent a rush of satisfaction through me, but I knew I couldn't act just yet. Simply taking back the company wasn't enough. My aunt had spent years humiliating me, stealing from me, and convincing the world that she was the true mastermind behind my mother's brand. If I simply walked in and claimed my position, she would twist the story, make herself look like the victim. No, I needed to destroy her publicly. I needed everyone to see the truth before I made my final move. That's when I decided to play the long game. For weeks I stayed quiet. I acted as if I had accepted my fate, as if I had truly been defeated. But behind the scenes I was gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I started digging into company records, and it didn't take long to uncover her biggest secret. My aunt wasn't just running the company, she was bleeding it dry. I found fake invoices, altered sales reports, and suspicious wire transfers that led to hidden offshore accounts. She had been stealing money for years, covering up the missing funds by manipulating financial reports. The deeper I looked, the more disgusted I became. But the real bombshell came when I hacked into her emails. There, in black and white, was the ultimate betrayal. She was planning to sell off the brand name to a foreign investor. My mother's legacy, the very company she had built with love and passion, was nothing more than a bargaining chip for my aunt. She was days away from closing the deal. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had waited this long, I could wait a little longer. I wanted everyone to witness her downfall. I wanted her to feel the same humiliation she had put me through. And so I stayed silent. I kept my head down, pretending to be nothing more than a disgraced former employee. My aunt had no idea what was coming. But soon, she would. The grand hall was filled with flashing lights, excited murmurs, and the soft rustling of expensive designer gowns. My aunt had spared no expense for this event, her biggest fashion show yet. Cameras lined the runway, reporters whispered amongst themselves, and investors sipped on their overpriced champagne, eagerly waiting for the show to begin. At the center of it all stood my aunt, radiant, confident, and utterly fake. She basked in the attention, flashing her signature smug smile as the models prepared backstage. This was her moment, the night where she would claim credit for yet another collection. A collection I had designed. I watched from the shadows, unseen but fully prepared. My heart pounded, but not with fear. With anticipation. Tonight wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my identity, my work, and my mother's legacy. The show began and my designs walked down the runway one by one. The audience gasped in awe at the intricate detailing, the seamless stitching, the artistry that had taken me months to perfect. But as expected, my aunt stood tall, smiling as if it were all her creation. When the last model disappeared behind the curtains, she took center stage, microphone in hand. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice dripping with fake warmth. "This collection represents the heart and soul of my vision. Every piece is a testament to my passion, my creativity, and my dedication to fashion." I nearly laughed. Her passion? Her creativity? The audience clapped, eating up every word. Industry leaders nodded in admiration, and I saw investors whispering about funding her next project. It was time. With steady steps, I walked out from the shadows and onto the stage. The clapping slowed. Murmurs spread across the hall. People turned in confusion, eyes darting between my aunt and me. Her smile faltered for the first time. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, gripping the microphone so tightly her knuckles turned white. I took another step forward, holding up a thick envelope. My voice was calm but powerful. "Let me introduce myself, the real owner of this company." Gasps filled the room. My aunt's eyes widened, her face draining of color. I turned to the audience and held up the legal documents for everyone to see. "My mother left this company to me. But my dear aunt," I shot her a pointed look, "chose to keep that little detail a secret." The room erupted into whispers. Camera flashes went off like fireworks. Before my aunt could cut in, I pulled out another stack of papers. "And since we're all here celebrating the success of her company, let's talk about the millions of dollars she stole, the fake sales reports, and the secret deal she was making to sell off my mother's brand." A loud murmur of shock spread through the crowd. Investors looked furious. Reporters scrambled to write down every word. My aunt stumbled back, shaking her head. That's ridiculous. She's lying." I let out a slow, confident smile. "Oh, then maybe you'd like to explain these emails." I handed my phone to a nearby reporter who eagerly skimmed through the messages. His eyes widened before he turned to his cameraman. "Get this on record," he whispered. My aunt's perfect world was crumbling. I had waited for this moment. And now there was no way out for her. The room was in chaos. Gasps, whispers, and flashes of cameras filled the air as the truth settled in. My aunt, the woman who had spent years belittling me, stealing my work, and lying to everyone, stood frozen in place. Her face turned as pale as the white designer gown she wore. Her lips trembled, her confident smirk completely gone. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. The investors were the first to react. "Is this true?" one of them demanded, stepping forward with a furious glare. "Did you really forge financial reports?" Before she could deny it, I held up my phone and pressed play. A voice filled the hall, her voice. "Just move the numbers around. These investors are idiots. They'll never check the real sales." The murmurs grew louder. The audience's shock turned into anger. I clicked again and another recording played. "Sell the brand to the highest bidder. I don't care if it loses its reputation. I want the money." My aunt's eyes darted wildly around the room. She knew there was no escape now. A reporter stood up, his camera rolling. "Is this how you've been running the company?" he asked, his voice sharp. "No. This is a setup," she shrieked, but no one believed her anymore. I wasn't finished. I turned to the audience, my voice loud and firm. You all trusted her. You thought she was some kind of fashion genius. But she lied to every single one of you. And when she wasn't lying, she was insulting you. I reached into my bag and pulled out printed copies of emails she had sent behind closed doors. These investors are desperate idiots. Our customers will buy anything if we slap a luxury tag on it. The employees? Worthless. They should be grateful I let them work for me. A horrified silence filled the room. The audience, once full of admiration, now looked at her with disgust. You lied to everyone. I shouted, letting all the years of betrayal pour out of me. The audience booed her. Some reporters laughed in disbelief, shaking their heads. Employees I had once worked with, who had suffered under her cruelty, finally let their anger show. You said I was just a seamstress, I continued, staring straight into her fearful eyes. You told me I was nothing. But tonight the world sees the truth, you're the fraud. My aunt snapped. You think you can do this to me? She screamed, turning red with rage. I built this company. I made it what it is. You're just some spoiled brat trying to take what's mine. But it wasn't hers. It never was. She lunged forward, trying to grab the microphone from my hand, but before she could touch me, security stepped in. Ma'am, you need to leave, one of the guards said firmly, grabbing her arm. Let go of me, she shrieked, thrashing wildly. You can't do this to me. This is my night. The investors turned their backs. The media filmed her humiliation. As security dragged her out, she kept screaming, her voice fading as the doors slammed behind her. The mighty fashion queen had fallen. And the world was watching every second of it. The morning after the fashion show felt surreal. I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. Calls, messages, and news alerts flooded my screen. Every major news outlet had picked up the scandal. Fashion mogul exposed as a fraud. Luxury brand CEO caught in financial scandal. Secret owner takes back her rightful place. Her downfall was everywhere. The same reporters who once praised her were now tearing her apart. Investors immediately pulled out, distancing themselves from her toxic reputation. Her name, once a symbol of wealth and power, was now a disgrace. By noon she had lost everything. The board members held an emergency meeting, this time without her. With my legal ownership documents now public, they had no choice but to recognize me as the rightful CEO. I walked into the office I had worked in for years, but this time as its true owner. Employees who had once whispered behind my back now stood up as I passed. Some looked ashamed, others relieved. They finally saw me. Good mornings. Last name. My assistant greeted me with newfound respect. I smiled. Good morning. Let's get to work. For the first time in years I belonged. Days turned into weeks and my aunt disappeared from public life. Without the company's money, she lost her mansion, her designer wardrobe, and her so-called friends. Then one day she came back. She stood at my office door, a shadow of the woman she once was. The arrogance was gone. Her designer dress had been replaced with something plain, her jewelry missing. Her eyes, once so full of condescension, were now filled with desperation. I need to talk to you, she said softly. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Why should I listen? She swallowed hard. I made mistakes. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Her voice wavered. Please. I have nothing left. I need a second chance. A part of me almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered the years of humiliation. The way she had mocked me, stolen from me, belittled me. I stood up, walked around my desk and looked her in the eye. Then I said the exact same words she had once told me. You should be grateful you even had a job. Her eyes widened. A shaky breath escaped her lips. She knew what those words meant. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No guilt. Just justice. Without another word, I turned around and walked away, leaving her standing there, broken, defeated, and finally facing the consequences of her own greed.